The massive doors of the Grand Assembly Hall opened with a deep rumble that echoed through the chamber. Daeho stepped inside, his black diplomatic uniform crisp and formal. Behind him walked Somin, her hand resting casually on her weapon belt, and Wu Jin, carrying a case full of scientific equipment and data tablets. The three humans had traveled for months to reach this moment. They were Earth's first representatives to the Galactic Council, the governing body that oversaw thousands of worlds and dozens of ancient civilizations. Today, humanity would formally request membership in the galactic community, but something was wrong. The enormous chamber, which could hold representatives from 50 different species, had fallen completely silent. Not the respectful quiet of a formal ceremony, but the uncomfortable stillness of a room where everyone had suddenly stopped talking. Daeho looked around at the assembled delegates. The Vorthok representatives towered above everyone else, their crystalline bodies catching the light from the chamber's artificial stars. They normally spoke in musical tones that filled the room with beautiful sounds. Now they stood motionless, like statues made of living diamond. The Nithori delegation floated in their containment fields, beings of pure energy who had existed since before most stars were born. Their usual bright colors had dimmed too barely, visible wisps. They communicated through light patterns that usually danced across the chamber walls. Today, those walls remained dark. Even the Quelax, a hive-minded species that never stopped chattering among themselves, had gone completely quiet. Their insect-like forms stood perfectly still, their compound eyes all turned toward the human delegation. "Welcome to the Grand Assembly," said Elder Vorthok Kresh, his voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. But there was something strange in his tone. After existing for over 2 million years, Kresh had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Nothing should have made him nervous, yet his crystalline form seemed to flicker with uncertainty. "Thank you for receiving us," Daeho replied, bowing slightly in the traditional greeting he had practiced for weeks. "We come representing Earth and all of humanity. We seek to join the galactic community as partners in peace and progress." The translator systems throughout the chamber began to hum and click. These devices could instantly translate between any known language in the galaxy. They had worked perfectly during the preliminary meetings over the past year. But now, strange sounds emerged from the speakers, clicks and whistles that made no sense, static that seemed to follow no pattern. So Min noticed it first. As a military strategist, she was trained to spot when something was not right. She leaned close to Daeho and whispered, "The translators are malfunctioning." "I noticed," Daeho whispered back, "but only when we speak." Wu Jin opened his case and pulled out a small recording device. As a scientist who studied alien cultures, he had learned to document everything. He pressed the record button and held it up. "Okay." But the device immediately began producing the same strange static that filled the translator speakers. Elder Kresh raised one of his crystalline arms. "Perhaps we should begin with the formal presentations. Each species will introduce themselves and their contributions to the galactic community." What followed was unlike anything the humans had expected. One by one, the alien delegates stepped forward to speak. The Vorthok talked about their ancient wisdom and their mastery of crystal technology. The Nithori described their energy manipulation abilities and their vast knowledge of the cosmos. The Quelax explained their collective intelligence and their skills in biological engineering. But every time a delegate mentioned humanity or Earth, the same thing happened. The translators would malfunction. The speakers would go silent. A delegate would pause, look uncomfortable, and then continue talking about something else. It was not an accident. It was deliberate. Daeho felt a chill run down his spine. These were civilizations that had existed for millions of years. They had seen the birth and death of entire star systems. They had witnessed the rise and fall of countless species. Nothing should have surprised them or made them uncomfortable. So why did they all seem afraid to talk about humans? The presentations ended. Elder Kresh announced a recess. We will reconvene in 1 standard hour to discuss the membership application. As the delegates began to leave, Wu Jin noticed something strange. The aliens were not leaving randomly. They were grouping together by species and moving towards smaller side chambers. But more importantly, they were all avoiding the humans. They are going to private meetings, Soman observed. Without us? That is normal procedure, Daeho said, but his voice showed doubt. They probably need time to discuss our application among themselves. No, Wu Jin said, checking his instruments. Look at this. He held up his recording device. During the entire session, every time someone was about to mention Earth or humanity, the background electromagnetic readings spiked. Someone is actively jamming our equipment. Sama's hand moved to her weapon. Are we in danger? I do not think so, Daeho replied, but we are definitely not welcome. Through the large windows of the assembly hall, they could see the alien delegates gathering in small groups on the observation platforms. The Vorthok were creating complex light patterns with their crystalline bodies. The Nathori were pulsing with rapid energy bursts. The Quileks were moving in tight formation, their antennae twitching in synchronized patterns. They were all communicating, but not in any language the human translators could understand. They were using old languages, ancient languages. Languages so old that even their own modern translator systems could not process them. They're hiding something, Wu Jin said. Something about us. But what? Daeho asked. We are just one small planet. We barely achieved faster than light travel last year. What could possibly make civilizations that have existed for millions of years act like this? Before anyone could answer, a soft chime echoed through the chamber. The recess was over. The delegates began returning to their positions, but the atmosphere had changed. If anything, the tension had increased. Elder Kresh took his position at the center of the chamber. His crystalline form was now completely still, showing none of the usual light patterns that indicated Vorthok emotions. We have discussed your application, he said. We have decided to postpone our decision pending further review. Further review of what? Daeho asked. Elder Kresh paused. For a moment, it seemed like he might answer honestly. Then his form flickered, and he spoke in the same diplomatic tone as before. We need more time to properly evaluate your species and your intentions. It was a lie. The humans could feel it. After millions of years of existence, these ancient beings did not need time to evaluate a single small planet. They already knew everything they needed to know about humanity. The question was what they knew and why it terrified them. So much that they would not even speak about it directly. As the session ended and the delegates began to leave, Daeho looked around the chamber one more time. Ancient civilizations that had conquered galaxies and witnessed the birth of stars were walking away from 3 humans like they were fleeing from something dangerous. But what could 3 humans from a small, blue planet possibly do that would frighten beings who had existed since the dawn of time? The answer to that question would change everything they thought they knew about humanity's place in the universe. 3 days had passed since the disastrous council meeting. The human delegation had been given quarters in the diplomatic section of the station, but they might as well have been in prison. No one would speak to them. No one would meet with them. No one would even acknowledge their presence in the corridors. Hai-Jin sat at her communication console, staring at rows of red warning lights. As the team's communication specialist, she had been trying to establish contact with Earth. Since their arrival, every attempt had failed. The communication arrays are working perfectly, she said to Daeho, who stood behind her looking frustrated. I can connect to any system in the galaxy except Earth. Every time I try to send a message home, the signal just disappears. disappears. How? Daeho asked. It gets about halfway through the transmission. Then the signal cuts out. It's cut. The system says the message was sent, but Earth never receives it. It is like someone is intercepting our communications. Salmian looked up from her tactical display. It is not just communications. Okay. I have been monitoring station activity for 3 days. Look at this. She pointed to a series of charts on her screen. Every time we leave our quarters, traffic in the corridors drops by 60%. When we enter the dining hall, it empties within minutes. When we try to visit the library, it closes for maintenance. That could be coincidence, Daeho said, but his voice showed he did not believe it. No, Salman replied. Watch this. She pulled up a video recording from the station's public areas. This is from yesterday when we walked to the observation deck. The recording showed a busy corridor filled with aliens from dozens of species. Forethought crystals chimed as they walked. Authority energy beings pulsed with conversation. Quilex moved in their usual group formations. Corda was alive with activity. Then the humans appeared on screen. Within 30 seconds, the corridor began to empty. Not in panic, but in a careful, organized way. The aliens did not run. They simply found reasons to leave. A Vorthok suddenly remembered an important meeting. Anethori decided to return to its quarters. A group of Quilex turned and walked in the opposite direction. They are avoiding us, Wu Jin said. But why? Jinwu, the team's psychologist, had been quietly observing alien behavior since their arrival. He opened his notebook and showed the others his findings. I have been studying their body language and movement patterns. Hey, this is not fear. When species are afraid, they show specific behaviors, fast movements, defensive postures, stress indicators. The aliens are not doing any of that. Then, what are they doing? Daeho asked. They are being respectful, Jinwu said. Taya behavior matches patterns I have seen in cultures that are showing deference to something they consider superior or dangerous. They are not avoiding us because they fear us. They are avoiding us because they think we are too important to approach casually. Hyjin frowned. That makes no sense. We are from one small planet that just learned to travel faster than light. How could we be important to civilizations that have existed for millions of years? I have been thinking about that, Wu Jin said. He pulled out his scientific equipment and showed them a series of readings. Look at these energy signatures. Every time we enter a room, the background electromagnetic activity spikes. Someone is scanning us constantly. Scanning us for what? Somin asked. I am not sure. But the scans are very detailed. They are not just checking for weapons or technology. They are analyzing our DNA, our brain patterns, our biological signatures. It is like they are comparing us to something. Daeho sat down heavily. Comparing us to what? Before anyone could answer, the door chimed. They all turned to see a small figure standing in the hallway. It was a young Quilex, barely old enough to be away from its hive. Unlike the adult Quilex they had seen, this one was not moving in formation. It was alone. May I enter? The young alien asked in broken Standard Galactic. The humans looked at each other in surprise. This was the first time any alien had voluntarily approached them. Of course, Daeho said. The young Quilex stepped inside, its compound eyes darting around nervously. I am called Kix. I am student of old history. I should not be here. My hive leaders would be very angry. Why? Hyjin asked gently. Because you are the returning ones, Kix said simply. All young ones are told not to speak to returning ones without permission from elders. The humans exchanged glances. Returning ones? Wu Jin asked. What does that mean? Kix's antennae twitched with what might have been confusion. You do not know, but you must know. You are human. All humans know about the returning. Do not understand, Jinwu said, using his gentlest voice. Can you explain? The young Quelex looked around the room as if checking for hidden listeners. Then it moved closer and spoke in a whisper. In the old archives, there are stories. Stories about the time before the current age. Stories about the species that ruled the galaxy before any of us reached the stars. What species? Tejo asked. Humans, Kix said. The archives say humans built the first star roads humans made, the first galactic empire. Humans taught the other species how to travel between worlds, but then they went away. The archives say they went to sleep on a small blue world at the edge of the galaxy. Simon felt her heart racing. Sleep, not real sleep, Kix explained. The archives say humans chose to forget. They chose to become young again. They chose to start over. But the archives also say that someday, when the galaxy needed them, humans would return to the stars. And you think that time is now? Wujin asked. Kix nodded rapidly. All the elders think so. That is why they are afraid to speak to you. They remember the old stories. They remember what humans could do when they ruled the galaxy. What could we do? Hyjin asked. Everything, Kix said, simply. The archives say humans could solve any problem. They could build anything. They could defeat any enemy. They could create new types of life. They could even change the laws of physics when they needed to. The room fell silent. The humans stared at the young alien, trying to process what they had heard. But that is impossible, Tejo said finally. We are just humans. We barely understand our own technology. We cannot change the laws of physics. Kix's eyes seemed to focus on something beyond the walls. The archives say that is how it always begins. Humans forget their power when they are young. But when they need it, they remember. The elders are waiting to see if you will remember. Remember what? Soman asked. Who you really are, Kix said. What you really are. Why you left the galaxy so long ago, and why you chose to return now. Suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Kix's antennae snapped to attention. I must go. Guys, the elders have discovered I am here. They will be very angry. Wait. Tejo called out. Where are these archives? Can we see them? The archives are forbidden to young species, Kix said, backing toward the door. But there are the places, old places. Dead worlds where the ancient records still exist. Places where you can learn the truth about yourselves. What truth? Jinwoo asked. But Kix was already gone, scurrying down the corridor as fast as its legs could carry it. The humans stood in silence, staring at the empty doorway. Everything they thought they knew about their place in the galaxy had just been turned upside down. Do you think it is true? Hyjin asked quietly. I do not know, Tejo replied. But I think we need to find out. Outside their quarters, the station continued its normal operations. But now, the humans knew why the corridors emptied when they appeared, why the translators malfunctioned when they spoke, why the ancient civilizations fell silent whenever they entered a room. They were not just humans from a small blue planet. According to the archives, they were something much more, something that had once ruled the galaxy and then chosen to forget. The question was whether they would remember in time, to understand why they had returned to the stars, and whether the galaxy was ready for what might happen when they did. The dead world of Kepler-4 for to see hung in space like a gray marble. Its surface was covered in ancient ruins that stretched across entire continents. For thousands of years, archaeological teams had studied this world, but they had never found anything. That explains why an entire civilization has simply vanished overnight. Mi-young stood at the edge of the excavation site, her breath forming small clouds in the thin atmosphere. The environmental suit felt heavy on her shoulders, but she barely noticed. She was too focused on what her team had discovered, buried beneath the ruins. Tejo, you need to see this, she said into her communicator. We found something. Something big. 3 days later, the entire human delegation arrived at the dig site. The journey from the council station had been tense. No alien vessels had followed them, but long-range sensors showed that several species were monitoring their movements from a safe distance. "What did you find?" Keho asked as he climbed down into the excavation pit. Myung led him to a chamber, carved deep into the bedrock. The walls were covered in symbols and pictures that seemed to glow with their own light. But it was not the alien artwork that made everyone stop and stare. It was the pictures of humans. "These ruins are over 100,000 years old," Myung explained. "But look at these carvings. They show humans in perfect detail. Our faces, our bodies, our proportions, everything is exactly right." Taehei, the team's linguist, was kneeling beside a wall covered in text. He had been working for hours to translate the ancient symbols. The language is old, older than any known galactic language. "Okay, but I am starting to understand some of it." "What does it say?" Wu Jin asked. Tae-Hien pointed to a section of text beneath the carved image of a human figure. "This word here means watcher, and this one means the distant ones. But this symbol, ... He traced a complex mark with his finger. "This is harder to translate. It might mean the sleeping empire or the hidden kingdom." Someone studied the carvings more closely. "These are not random pictures. They are observations. Like someone was watching humans and recording what they saw." "But that is impossible," Daeho said. 100,000 years ago, humans were still living in caves on Earth. We had not even invented agriculture yet." "Are you sure about that?" Myung asked. She led them to another section of the chamber. Here, the walls showed more detailed scenes. Humans in strange clothing operating advanced technology. Humans standing beside massive ships that looked nothing like current Earth designs. Humans working alongside aliens in what appeared to be laboratories or research facilities. According to these carvings, humans were already traveling between stars 100,000 years ago, Myung said. And they were not alone. "Look at this." She pointed to a section that showed humans and aliens working together. The aliens were clearly recognizable as Vorthok, Nethori, and Quilex. But in these ancient pictures, the aliens were following human instructions. "The humans are in charge," Jinwoo observed. "In every scene, the humans are the ones making decisions. The aliens are helping, but they are not leading." Taehan had moved to another wall. "There's more text here." Lee tried to translate it. He worked in silence for several minutes, occasionally making notes on his tablet. Finally, he looked up with a pale face. "What does it say?" Daeho asked. "It says that this civilization was part of something called the Human Compact, a galactic government ruled by humans. According to this text, the Human Compact included thousands of worlds and dozens of species." "That cannot be right," Simon said. "There is no record of any human civilization before Earth." "There is no record on Earth," Myung corrected. "What if the records were kept somewhere else?" She led them deeper into the chamber, to a section they had not yet fully explored. The walls were covered with what looked like star maps, but these were not maps of the current galaxy. The star patterns were different. The trade routes were different. Entire sectors that were now empty space showed signs of massive civilizations. "This is a map of the galaxy as it was 100,000 years ago," Myung said. "And, according to these markings, over half of it was controlled by humans." Wu Jin pulled out his scientific equipment and began scanning the walls. "The energy signatures are incredible. These carvings were made with technology we do not understand. But the most interesting thing is this." He showed them his readings. "The walls are not just decorated. They are designed to store information. This entire chamber is a data storage system." "Like a computer?" Hai-Jin asked. "More like a library," Wu Jin replied. A library that has been waiting for someone to come and read it. Taehyun had found another section of text. This one was different from the others. The symbols were more complex, and they seemed to pulse with a faint light when he touched them. This section is written in a different language, he said, but I think it might be an early form of human language. A language so old that we have forgotten it existed. Can you translate it? Keho asked. Taehyun worked for an hour, making notes and cross-referencing symbols. Finally, he stepped back from the wall. Okay, you can translate part of it. It says something about the great departure and the sleeping time, but there is one phrase that keeps repeating. What phrase? Myung asked. When the Watchers return, the galaxy will remember. The chamber fell silent. Everyone stared at the glowing symbols on the walls. The implications were staggering. We are the Watchers, Salman said quietly. That is what the young Quillex called us, the returning ones. But if these records are true, Daeho said, then we are not just returning to the galaxy. We are returning to our own empire. Myung nodded toward another section of the chamber. There is more, much more. These ruins are just the beginning. According to the star maps, there are similar sites on dozens of worlds. All of them contain records of human civilization. All of them are waiting for us to find them. Why? Jinwoo asked. Why would an ancient civilization spend so much effort recording information about humans? 'Cause they were not recording information about humans, Taehyun said, understanding suddenly filling his voice. They were recording information for humans. This is not a historical record. It is a message. A message saying what? Keen asked. Taehyun pointed to the final section of text he had been translating. A message saying, welcome home. The weight of the discovery settled over the team. They were not explorers from a young civilization seeking to join the galactic community. They were the descendants of the species that had built the galactic community in the first place. No wonder the aliens are afraid to talk to us, Salman said. They are not dealing with newcomers. They are dealing with the return of their former rulers. But why did we leave? Daeho asked. If we ruled half the galaxy, why did we abandon it and hide on Earth? Myung looked at the walls covered in ancient symbols and glowing text. I do not know. I think the answer is here somewhere. We just need to keep looking. As the team prepared to spend the night in the ruins, they could see alien ships in the distance. The other species were watching, waiting to see what the humans would discover about their own forgotten past. The archaeological site had revealed that humanity's return to the stars was not a beginning. It was a homecoming, and somewhere in these ancient ruins lay the truth about why humans had left their galactic empire behind, and what would happen now that they had returned to reclaim it. The galaxy was about to remember why it had learned to fear and respect the species called human, and the humans were about to remember who they really were. Simon's security investigation had taken a dangerous turn. For 2 weeks, she had been secretly monitoring alien communications and tracking the movement of ships throughout the sector. What she discovered made her blood run cold. They are not just watching us, she told the assembled team in their makeshift command center on the dead world. They are preparing for something. Military fleets are moving into position around every system that contains human archaeological sites. Young-soo, the team's historian, looked up from his collection of ancient texts. They are trying to prevent U.S. from learning the truth. Why would they care about events that happened 100,000 years ago? 'Cause those events are about to repeat themselves, Simon replied. She activated a holographic display showing ship movements across the galaxy. Look at this pattern. Every major alien civilization is pulling back their forces. They are abandoning frontier worlds and consolidating their fleets around their home systems. That looks like a defensive formation, Daeho observed. It is, Salman confirmed. They are preparing for war, but not war against each other. war against us. Sunhee, the team's geneticist, had been working day and night to analyze DNA samples from the ancient ruins. Her findings were equally disturbing. The genetic evidence supports everything we have learned from the archaeological sites. Modern humans are not native to Earth. Our DNA contains markers that should not exist in a species that evolved naturally on a single world. What kind of markers? Wu Jin asked. Genetic modifications that could only have been made by an advanced civilization, Sunhee explained. Our immune systems are designed to handle pathogens from dozens of different world types. Our brains are structured to process information faster than any other known species. Our bodies can adapt to extreme environments that would kill most other life forms. You were saying we were engineered, Jin asked. I am saying we were improved, Sunhee corrected. The base DNA is human, but it has been enhanced. Someone took a normal human population and gave them abilities that would make them superior to every other species in the galaxy. Young-Su had been studying the historical records they had recovered from multiple sites. I have been putting together a timeline of events. According to the ancient texts, the human compact ruled the galaxy for over 50,000 years. During that time, they prevented wars between species, shared technology freely, and maintained peace across thousands of worlds. So what went wrong? Jinwoo asked. The incident, Young-Su said, his voice growing quiet. Every text mentions it, but none of them explain what actually happened. They just say that during the final years of the human compact, something occurred. That changed everything. After the incident, humans began abandoning their colonies and retreating to the edges of the galaxy. And then, Daeho pressed. Then they vanished completely. According to the records, the last human settlements went dark about 90,000 years ago. For 10,000 years, there was no trace of human activity anywhere in the galaxy. Other species began to expand into the empty systems, but they never forgot that humans might return someday. Soman pulled up another display. It explains why Elder Kresh contacted me yesterday. He wants to meet with you privately, Daeho. He says it is time for the truth to be revealed. Is it safe? Daeho asked. I do not know, Soman admitted, but I think we are past the point of playing it safe. Alien fleets are moving. Something's going to happen, whether we are ready or not. The meeting took place in a neutral location, an abandoned space station in the Outer Rim. The Krish arrived alone, his crystalline form dim with what appeared to be exhaustion. For a being who had lived for millions of years, he looked strangely fragile. I am breaking the most sacred law of our people by speaking to you, he said to Daeho. But I fear that if I do not, the galaxy will face a disaster far worse than the incident. What was the incident? Daeho asked directly. Elder Kresh was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of eons. Your people did not abandon the galaxy by choice. They were forced to leave. And the reason they were forced to leave is the same reason we have been dreading your return. I do not understand. Humans are not like other species, Elder Kresh explained. Other species have limits. We can only think so fast, only solve certain types of problems, only adapt to specific environments, but humans have no limits. When humans encounter a problem they cannot solve, they change themselves until they can solve it. That does not sound like a bad thing, Daeho said. It is not, until humans encounter a problem that should not be solved. Elder Kresh created a holographic display showing the galaxy as it had been 100,000 years ago. During the height of the human compact, your people achieved technological advancement that no other species thought possible. You could manipulate space and time. You could create and destroy entire star systems. You could even bring the dead back to life. That is incredible, Daeho said. Why would anyone want to stop that? Because humans did not stop there. Elder Kresh replied. Your people discovered that the universe itself had limits. Laws of physics that could not be broken. Natural forces that could not be controlled. And that discovery drove some humans to attempt something that endangered all of existence. What did they attempt? They tried to rewrite the fundamental laws of reality itself. They built a machine that could alter the basic forces that hold the universe together. They wanted to create a new type of existence where humans would not be bound by any limitations at all. Deho felt a chill run down his spine. What happened? The machine worked, Elder Kresh said simply. For a brief moment, the laws of physics ceased to function in a region of space spanning several star systems. Matter began to behave in ways that violated causality. Time moved backward. Energy became matter, and matter became thought. Reality itself began to unravel. How did they stop it? They could not stop it, Elder Kresh replied. The other humans had to destroy the machine and everyone operating it. But the damage was done. The fabric of space-time in that region was permanently altered. It became a dead zone where nothing could exist. And that is why humans left the galaxy. The other species demanded it, Elder Kresh said. They were terrified that humans would try such an experiment again. There were calls for the complete extinction of your species. The humans made a different choice. They agreed to voluntary exile. They chose to abandon their empire and hide on a remote world where they could not threaten the universe again. But we did not just hide, Deho said, understanding beginning to dawn. We made ourselves forget. Yes, the humans who went to Earth deliberately erased their own memories and genetic knowledge. They wanted to ensure that future generations would never be tempted to repeat the mistakes of the past. They became primitives by choice, starting civilization over from the beginning. So why are the other species afraid of us now? We do not remember any of this. Dr. Kresh's crystalline form flickered with what might have been sadness, because forgetting was only supposed to be temporary. The humans who designed the exile also designed a way for their descendants to remember when the time was right. They embedded genetic triggers in your DNA that would activate when humans returned to the stars. Genetic triggers, Deho asked. Memories and knowledge of your ancestors are locked in your genetic code. Every human alive today carries the complete scientific and technological knowledge of the human compact. You just need the right stimulus to unlock it. What kind of stimulus? Exposure to the ancient sites, contact with the other species, the stress of being in space again. Here people are already beginning to remember. Some of you are having dreams about technologies that do not exist. Others are solving problems that should be impossible for your current level of development. Deho thought about the strange dreams he had been having since arriving at the space station. Dreams of machines he had never seen and equations he did not understand. How long do we have? Not long, Elder Kresh said. Within a few months, maybe less, humans will begin to remember who they are and what they can do. When that happens, the galaxy will face a choice: accept the return of human leadership or go to war to prevent another incident. And which choice will the galaxy make? Elder Kresh's form grew even dimmer. That depends on what humans choose to do with their returning memories. Will you be the wise rulers who brought peace to the galaxy for 50,000 years? Or will you be the species that nearly destroyed reality itself? The meeting ended with more questions than answers. Deho returned to the archaeological site. He could feel something stirring in his mind. Memories that were not his own. Knowledge that belonged to ancestors he had never known. The human race was about to remember its true history, and the galaxy was about to discover whether humanity had learned from its mistakes or was doomed to repeat them. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in recorded history. Representatives from every major civilization had gathered, But this time, they were not sitting in their usual diplomatic circles. They were arranged in a defensive formation, with weapon systems visible and shields raised. Dong Haiyan stood at the center of the chamber, feeling the weight of 10,000 years of history pressing down on his shoulders. As Earth's chief ambassador, he had been chosen to speak for all of humanity. Behind him stood the rest of the human delegation. But they were no longer the confused explorers who had arrived weeks ago. The memories had returned, not all at once, but in waves that had grown stronger each day. First came the dreams of ancient technologies and forgotten sciences. Then the understanding of languages that had been dead for millennia. Finally, the complete knowledge of what humanity had once been and what they had done. "We remember," Dong Haiyan said, his voice carrying clearly through the silent chamber. "We remember the human compact. We remember the 50,000 years of peace we brought to this galaxy. We remember the worlds we built and the species we helped reach the stars." Gay, Elder Kresh, stood motionless, his crystalline form reflecting the chamber's lights like a prism. "Do you also remember why you left?" "We remember the incident," Dong Hai replied. "We remember the experiment that nearly tore reality apart. We remember the choice our ancestors made to exile themselves rather than risk destroying the universe." A Nethori representative pulsed with angry red energy. "Then, why have you returned? Why risk bringing that danger back to the galaxy?" Dong Khan looked around the chamber at the assembled aliens. Some showed fear, others showed anger, but all showed the same underlying tension. They were waiting for humanity to make a choice that would determine the fate of every living thing in the galaxy. "We returned because we had to," Dong Haiyan said. "The genetic programming our ancestors built into our DNA was designed to activate when the galaxy needed us again. That time has come." "Needed you for what?" Quilek's representative asked. Eung stepped forward. As the team's philosopher, she had spent the most time thinking about the implications of their recovered memories. "The universe is changing. Its dark energies accelerating the expansion of space faster than predicted. Within 50,000 years, the galaxies will be so far apart that faster-than-light travel will become impossible. Every civilization will be trapped in isolation. That is a problem for future generations," Elder Kresh said. "No," Yunji replied. "It is a problem for this generation. Acceleration is not natural. Something is causing it. Something that will destroy all life in the universe unless it is stopped." The chamber erupted in confused voices and agitated energy patterns. The aliens had not known about the cosmic threat. Only humans, with their recovered knowledge, understood what was happening. "How do you know this?" the Nethori demanded. "Because we have seen it before," Dong Haiyan said. "This is not the first universe. Our ancestors' experiments allowed them to see beyond the boundaries of normal space and time. They discovered that the universe goes through cycles of expansion and contraction, but something is interfering with the natural cycle, forcing the universe to expand until it tears itself apart." "What is interfering?" Elder Kresh asked. "We do not know yet," Dong Hai admitted. But our ancestors left us the tools to find out. The same technology that nearly destroyed reality can also be used to save it. That is why the genetic programming activated. That is why we were compelled to return to the stars." The chamber fell silent. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not returned to reclaim their empire. They had returned to face a threat that could destroy everything. "You want us to trust you with a technology that nearly ended existence itself?" Forthok Elder asked. "We are not asking for your trust," Dong Haiyan said. "We are offering you a choice." He activated a holographic display that showed two possible futures. In the first, humanity worked alone to solve the cosmic crisis. In the second, all the species of the galaxy work together. We can handle this crisis ourselves, Dong Haiyan explained. We have the knowledge and the ability to build the necessary technology. But if we work alone, we will have to make decisions that affect every living thing in the universe without input from anyone else. The last time humans did that, we nearly destroyed reality. And the alternative? Elder Kresh asked. We work together, Yunji said. Humans provide the advanced technology and scientific knowledge. The other species provide wisdom, oversight, and different perspectives. No major decisions are made without consensus from the galactic community. You are offering to share power. The Quelex representative asked in disbelief. We are offering to avoid the mistakes of the past, Dong Haiyan replied. Our ancestors thought they knew what was best for the universe. They were wrong. This time, we want to make sure that does not happen again. Elder Kresh moved closer to the center of the chamber. His ancient form seemed to glow with inner light. What guarantee do we have that you will honor this agreement? Same guarantee our ancestors gave when they chose exile over war, Dong Haiyan said. Our word, that is not enough, the Notori representative said. Words can be broken. Then we offer something more, Yanji said. She pulled out a device that none of the aliens recognized, but that the humans understood perfectly. This is a genetic lock. If we activate it, no human will be able to access the most dangerous technologies without the consent of representatives from every major species. You would voluntarily limit your own abilities, Elder Kresh asked. You would voluntarily accept. Oversight, Dong Haiyan corrected. The technology will still work. The research will still proceed, but we will not be able to make the same mistakes our ancestors made. The chamber buzzed with urgent communications as the alien representatives conferred with their home governments. The decision they were being asked to make was unprecedented. Trust the species that had once ruled the galaxy and then nearly destroyed it to save the universe from a threat only they could perceive. Finally, Elder Kresh spoke for all of them. We have discussed your proposal. We have one condition. What condition? Dong Haiyan asked. If we agree to this partnership, it must be permanent. No more exile. No more hiding. Humans become part of the galactic community forever with all the responsibilities that entails. Dong Haiyan looked at his fellow humans. They all nodded. The choice had been made long before they entered this chamber. We accept, he said. Humanity will take its place in the galactic community, not as rulers, but as partners, not as exiles, but as citizens. Elder Kresh's crystalline form brightened for the first time since the humans had arrived. Then let us begin. The universe needs saving, and we will save it together. As the formal ceremonies began, Dong Yin felt something that humans had not experienced for 90,000 years, that they were home, not just on Earth, but in the galaxy where they belonged. The ancient civilizations were no longer silent when humans entered the room. Instead, they were speaking with one voice, planning for a future that would require the best of every species to achieve the galaxy had remembered. Why it had once trusted humanity to lead, and humanity had remembered that true strength came not from standing alone, but from standing together. The universe was still in danger. The cosmic crisis still threatened all existence. But for the first time in millennia, every species in the galaxy was united in facing that challenge. The human compact was reborn, not as an empire, but as a partnership that would endure until the stars themselves grew cold, and in the vast darkness between galaxies, ancient forces that had been working to tear the universe apart suddenly found themselves facing something they had not expected: resistance.